Let's bring in Ohio Senator J.D. Vance. Mr. Vance, it's good to see you again. Just give me your quick thoughts on this. I mean, they can paper this over and try to cover this up, Senator Vance, but this, you know what? This reveals major, major problems. What are you thinking here?
Well, the first thing I'm thinking, Larry, is I can't imagine another time in the history of our government run by Democrats or Republicans where you have a major cabinet official who's just gone missing. We have to remember that Joe Biden ran on restoring basic decency and order to the White House. That was his entire claim to be elected president in the first place. They promised good government. What they've delivered is a missing secretary. How do you lose the Secretary of Defense for 3 days without anybody asking serious questions, Larry? It just doesn't make an ounce of sense. There are so many unanswered questions here, so many things that we don't know, and it just gives lie to the entire Biden promise that he would return decency to good government. I take the decency that we had 5 years ago in the White House over losing the Secretary of Defense.
You know, first of all, there ought to be hearings about this. I mean, there should be hearings. And it should be step by step. There's a chronology that's missing from all these accounts. Now, let me get to the bottom line. Do you think, Senator Vance, do you think it's time for Mr. Austin to resign? Biden apparently is not going to fire him. The question is, should Austin resign? Because a lot of this stuff comes from Austin's own office, which was, shall we say, miscalculating.
Look, he absolutely should resign. He should be fired by the President of the United States. And barring that, the Congress has to look into this. There are so many problems here, so many unanswered questions. Did we have a breakdown in our nuclear deterrence? Of course, the Secretary of Defense is a major part of that. We're now, 4 days where we haven't seen the Secretary of Defense. We should actually check in and make sure, God forbid, we don't have a weekend at Bernie's situation with the world's most powerful military. He should resign. This is disgraceful. Again, I've never seen anything like it. But beyond him resigning, Larry, we've got to have a very, very stark set of questions to the Biden administration about who's actually in charge over there. If you lose the Secretary of Defense for days, it suggests that the engine is running, but nobody's behind the wheel. That is the story of the Biden administration at a time of extraordinary chaos. For the United States all across the world. It's a big, big problem.
So as I understand it, Senator, as I understand it, President Biden did not talk to his Secretary of Defense for almost a week. We're in the middle of several wars, as you know, including the southern border, but we're in the middle of a Ukraine war. We're in the middle of an Israeli war. We're in the middle of a Houthi war or an Iranian terrorist war. So is it possible that the president in wartime has not talked to his Secretary of Defense for almost a week? I can't imagine that, but what say you?
I can't imagine it either, Larry, but that appears to be the case. We have to remember it's not just indirect conflicts. It's also we have American troops that are being fired on all across the world. We are responding, of course, with the situation with the Houthi rebels in Iran. And my question is, who is the President of the United States talking to at the world's most powerful military? Is it the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? Is it somebody else at the Department of Defense? And why is Lloyd Austin not involved in these conversations, or at the very least telling people where he is? It's important for the American people to recognize, Larry, that whatever your politics, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, this is arguably the most important official in our government outside the President of the United States. It's a really troubling thing that we just lost him and that no one in the United States government actually thinks it was important for the president to talk to the leader of the armed forces. It's a really, really worrisome situation, and it suggests breakdowns at multiple levels of the military and of the Biden White House.
Let me switch gears slightly, not enormously, but a couple weeks ago, front page in the news, Nippon Steel Company taking over U.S. Steel Company. The deal has not been consummated yet. I believe you were opposed to that, even though Japan is an ally. I think the CFIUS committee, internally run by the Treasury, committee to inspect foreign investment. What's your take on that? It's a little bit old business, Senator Vance, but we never had a chance to talk. I think it's pretty serious if all of our manufacturing is being taken over. Even though it might be friends, I still think it's a pretty serious issue and one that we should look at carefully.
Well, that's exactly right, Larry. And that's really my entire point, is that CFIA should actually look at the national security implications of this acquisition. Look, I love Japan. It's a great country, beautiful people, and you're right, they are an important ally. But we also have to ask ourselves, if, let's say, there is an order for steel from a Japanese-owned firm, does that firm respond to Japanese order first, or does it respond to American orders first at a time of crisis? What if we need to build a ship that requires that steel? Who gets the steel first? And we have to remember, Larry, that Japan's a great country, but it is fundamentally within China's sphere of influence. So if you walk this path down 10 years down the road and you have some major conflict in East Asia, can we be confident that we can get the steel that we need to manufacture the things that our people need? Of course, most importantly is defensive weapons. So I think this raises a lot of concerns, Larry, and I think importantly, we've got to learn the lessons of the last 40 years. We allowed too much of our manufacturing to go overseas. It made our country weaker. I don't want to see us keep making those mistakes. I'd like to see us reverse them.
Last one, Senator Vance, on the border, the catastrophe at the border. No deal. Senator Langford says there's no deal. Joe Biden hasn't engaged in a deal. What? This is a major war going on, and I don't know whether Biden's plugged into it or not.
Look, Larry, it's the most important thing happening in our country. If we don't get control of the southern border, tens of millions of illegal aliens now in our country, tons of fentanyl killing over 100,000 people. We don't have a country anymore if we don't get control of that border. I think Senator Langford is negotiating with the Democrats in good faith. And look, in a lot of ways, Larry, we are trying to solve a problem for the president that he can't solve himself. He can't secure the border because he's got crazies on his left flank who want an open border in this country. But we Republicans are trying to solve the problem, because if we have an open border, it is going to continue to destroy this country. So look, I'd love to see us make some real forward progress here. But the problem is, Larry, the president really is in charge of border enforcement. He's got to have a come to Jesus moment that recognizes that we've got to do something here. This is unacceptable. We're now getting 12,000, 14,000 crossings every single day in this country. It's got to stop, and the president's got to do something to make it stop.
All right, Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it.